When you think about history, what usually comes to mind? Probably a bunch of dates and names to memorize, right? Well, what if I told you it's actually way more exciting than that? It's less about textbooks and a lot more like a real-life detective story, all about building a case, one clue at a time. So here's a question for you. What could a historian possibly have in common with a detective? I mean, at first glance, they seem like they're from totally different worlds. One's digging up ancient pottery, the other's taping off a crime scene. But there's this one fundamental skill that connects them, and it's absolutely crucial for both of their jobs. It's this: they both solve mysteries. At the end of the day, they're both problem solvers. They start with this big unknown, a crime or a question about what really happened hundreds of years ago, and then they go on the hunt for evidence, for clues, to piece it all together and build a really compelling case. All right, so if you're going to solve a mystery, you have to start somewhere. And for both the historian and the detective, that first step is exactly the same. You've got to start searching for clues. I want you to picture this. The entire past is like one gigantic sprawling crime scene. And the clues? Oh, they aren't just sitting there in a nice, neat evidence bag. Nope. They're scattered everywhere, across centuries, across continents. Sometimes they're broken, incomplete, or they even seem to contradict each other. The real job of a historian is knowing where to look and, maybe more importantly, how to look. And the toolkit they use? It's amazing. We're talking about physical artifacts, things you can actually hold, like an old piece of pottery or a tool. Then you've got documents, and that can be anything from a secret love letter to a huge government proclamation. They look at eyewitness accounts. They'll actually go and visit historical sites to get a feel for the place. And they'll even analyze old photographs. Every single one of these things is a potential clue, a piece of the puzzle. And you can't look at a photo the same way you look at a legal document, right? Each one needs its own special approach. Okay, so let's say you've done the work. You've gathered this huge pile of clues. Now what? You can't just dump a box of evidence on the table and say, all right, I'm done. That's not how it works. This is where we get to what might be the most critical part of the whole thing, actually building the case. Because think about it, a big pile of clues isn't a story. A list of facts doesn't actually explain anything. A detective looks at all the evidence to come up with a theory of the crime, right? Well, a historian does the exact same thing, they just have a different name for it. They call it a thesis. And a thesis isn't just a topic like World War II, and it's not just a fact like the war ended in 1945. It's an argument. It's something you can debate. It's a meaningful interpretation that takes all those clues you found and explains why they matter. A good thesis answers the single most important question a historian can ask. So what? Let's look at the difference here. Just the facts will tell you what happened. But a thesis, a real interpretation, argues why it happened and why we should even care. It's the difference between saying the king signed a piece of paper and arguing the moment the king signed that paper, the entire balance of power in the country changed forever. See the difference? One is a fact, the other is an idea. Yeah, this quote from the source material really nails it. A great thesis connects all the dots. It takes that one little piece of evidence, that single document the king signed, and shows you how it fits into the bigger picture, the larger context of everything else that was going on with politics and society. That is where real understanding of the past begins. All right, so you've got your evidence, you've got your thesis, your theory. You're not done yet. The next step is maybe the hardest. You have to convince other people. And that brings us to the final stage, presenting your argument. See? History isn't some dusty old book of facts that never changes. It's a living, breathing, ongoing debate. So a historian doesn't just present evidence to say, hey, look, I'm right. They do it to engage with what other historians have said, to challenge their ideas, to refine them, or sometimes to completely prove them wrong. That's how our understanding of the past actually gets better. So let's just recap the method here, put it in a nutshell. First, you develop your argument. That's your thesis. Then you go out and gather the evidence to prove it. You have to analyze all your sources, really look at them with a critical eye. And finally, you use all that work to build your case and jump into that big historical conversation. And listen, there is one golden rule in this whole process. It is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to show your work. Every single claim you make, every interpretation has to be backed up by a source. Citing your sources, that's the bedrock of everything. It's how you prove to everyone that you're not just, making stuff up. So there you have it. the detective work of a historian. Pretty cool, right? But you might be thinking, okay, that's nice for them, but why does this matter to me? Well, it turns out these skills are incredibly valuable, way outside of a history class. Let's dig into why this is so important. This whole process, finding evidence, building an argument, backing up your claims, it's one of the best workouts for your brain you can get. It's a powerful tool for critical thinking. It literally trains you to question the information you see, to look for where it's coming from, to spot potential biases, and to stop just passively accepting everything you're told. I mean, let's be real. We are swimming in information every single day. Just an absolute flood of opinions and arguments coming at us from all sides. Being able to cut through all that noise, to find what's actually credible, and to build your own logical conclusions from real evidence, that's not just some academic thing, that is an essential life skill for making sense of this crazy, complex world we live in. So, I want to leave you with a final thought. A question, really. Take this historian's toolkit we've been talking about and start using it in your own life. The next time you see a news story or hear a strong opinion, put on your detective hat. Look at the evidence. Be your own historian and ask yourself, what story is the evidence all around me really telling?